Welcome back to the Gold IRA Blueprint podcast. Today we're going to be diving into a topic that I think hits home for a lot of our listeners,
hmm
and that is, protecting your wealth, especially during something like a divorce.
Yeah, divorce can be a really tricky time financially,
Absolutely.
especially for anyone who's worked hard to build up, a significant amount over the years.
Exactly. And, that's why I think this deep dive is so important. We've got some great articles and research on gold IRAs and how they can really provide that extra layer of protection.
Yeah, when you think about it, a lot of people think of gold as kind of an old-fashioned thing, right?
Yeah.
But it can be incredibly powerful for protecting your wealth.
So let's break it down. What makes a gold IRA so different from a traditional IRA when we're talking about something like a divorce?
Well, on the surface, they're actually pretty similar. They're both self-directed retirement accounts, and they both have tax advantages. Your investments can grow tax-deferred until retirement. But the big difference is that with a gold IRA, you can hold physical gold and other precious metals.
So instead of just having, stocks and bonds on a screen, you're actually holding tangible assets like gold bars or coins.
Right.
It's pretty cool when you think about it.
It is. And, especially during a divorce, when things are uncertain and emotions are high,
Yeah,
having something tangible like that can give you real peace of mind.
I can see that. But let's say you're in a situation where one spouse is trying to liquidate assets really quickly, or the market takes a dip right when the settlement is being finalized. How does having gold actually help in that situation?
That's where the historical performance of gold comes in. Gold has a long track record of holding its value, even during times of economic turmoil or high inflation,
Yeah.
which are definitely things that can happen during a divorce.
So while other assets might be going down, the gold portion of your portfolio is actually holding steady or even going up.
Exactly. It's like an anchor that
Yeah.
provides stability.
Right.
Now, it's not totally immune to market forces, of course, but it's definitely more stable than a lot of other assets.
Okay, so that's starting to make sense. But, when it comes to dividing assets in a divorce,
hmm
aren't all retirement accounts treated the same?
Well, that's where it gets a little more nuanced. A gold IRA can actually be classified as separate property or marital property, depending on when and how you acquired it.
Okay, so if I inherited a gold IRA from my grandmother, let's say before I got married,
Yeah.
that would be considered separate property, right?
Most likely, yes.
Okay,
Or if you rolled over funds from a 401k that you had before you got married into a gold IRA,
got it.
that would also likely be considered separate property.
So documentation is key here.
Absolutely.
You need to be able to prove where those funds came from.
Right. You want to have account statements, transaction records, anything that shows the history of the account. Now, even if you started a gold IRA before you got married, any contributions that you made during the marriage could be viewed as marital property.
Ah, okay, so it's not just when you opened it, it's also how you funded it throughout the marriage.
Exactly.
Okay, that's really important to know.
Now, if you want to go even further to protect your gold IRA from divorce proceedings, you might want to consider an irrevocable trust.
Okay, that sounds pretty serious.
It can basically make your gold IRA untouchable in a divorce.
Wow, so it's like a fortress for your assets.
Exactly. It can protect you from creditors as well.
Okay, so this is something you'd want to talk to an expert about.
Absolutely. You need an attorney who specializes in asset protection to set it up correctly.
Makes sense. So we've talked about the benefits of a gold IRA during divorce,
Right.
the importance of documentation, and even these advanced strategies like an irrevocable trust.
Yeah.
But what happens when the divorce is actually filed? Like, how do gold IRAs get divided in practice?
That's a great question, and that's what we're going to cover when we come back.
Awesome. So stay tuned. We're going to be diving even deeper into the world of gold IRAs and divorce protection.
Right. And don't forget to check out Gold IRA, blueprint.com, favorite exclusive, for a free checklist that can help you choose the right gold IRA company.
It's a great resource for anyone thinking about adding a gold IRA to their portfolio.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about what happens when the divorce actually gets filed.
Okay, so the papers are filed, things are getting real. What happens to that gold IRA?
Well, it doesn't automatically get split down the middle.
Okay.
Like we said before, a gold IRA can be separate property or marital property.
Right.
So that classification is going to really determine what happens to it in the divorce.
So if we can prove it's separate property, it's protected.
Right, and that's the ideal situation.
Okay.
But if it's considered marital property or if there's any questions about where it came from, then it can get a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
And that's where something called a QDRO comes in.
Okay. QDROs, we touched on those earlier, but can you remind us what those are and why they're so important?
Yeah, a QDRO is basically a legal document that tells the gold IRA company how to divide the assets in the IRA.
Okay.
according to the divorce settlement. So it's basically a set of instructions.
So it's like a roadmap for the IRA company,
Exactly.
saying this percentage goes to this spouse, this percentage goes to that spouse.
That's a good way to think about it. And it's not just about percentages. It also specifies, when and how the money can be taken out and whether there are any taxes or penalties that apply.
Okay, so it sounds like the wording of a QDRO is really important.
Yeah, it's incredibly important.
What are some things that can go wrong if it's not done correctly?
Well, one of the biggest problems is that you could end up with unintended tax consequences.
Okay.
So, for example, if the QDRO doesn't properly address the early withdrawal penalty, one spouse could end up taking money out before age 59 and a half, and then they get hit with a 10% penalty on top of their regular income tax.
Wow, so that could be a big chunk of their money.
Exactly.
Okay, so having an attorney who really understands QDROs is super important.
Oh, absolutely. You want someone who knows all the ins and outs of retirement accounts and divorce law.
Makes sense. So let's say we have the QDRO in place, everything's worded correctly. How do you actually divide the gold?
Well, you don't actually cut the gold bars in half.
Okay.
Usually what happens is that you either liquidate a portion of the IRA, meaning you sell some of the gold and divide the cash proceeds,
Oh,
or you transfer a portion of the gold holdings to a new IRA in the other spouse's name.
so they each end up with their own gold IRA.
Exactly. It really depends on the specifics of the divorce settlement and what the two spouses want to do.
That makes sense. Now, what about valuing the gold IRA itself?
Right.
How do you determine what it's worth for the purposes of dividing it?
That's a great question. With stocks, it's easy to just look up the price.
Right.
But with physical gold, it's a little bit more complicated.
So we can't just go on some website and check the price.
Well, you can get a general idea that way.
Okay.
But if you want a really accurate valuation, you need to get a professional appraisal.
An appraisal?
Yeah, someone who specializes in evaluating precious metals.
So they actually come in and look at the gold.
Right. They look at the purity and weight of the gold, and if there are any rare coins, they'll take that into account as well.
Wow, so it's a pretty involved process.
It is, but it's important to make sure that everything is divided fairly.
Okay, this is all really interesting,
Yeah.
but I can imagine it feeling pretty overwhelming
Oh,
for someone going through a divorce.
absolutely.
There's so many things to think about.
It's a lot to handle. That's why it's so important to have a good support system in place.
Yeah.
Good attorneys, financial advisors, even therapists can be really helpful.
Right. And speaking of support, I wanted to remind everyone about that free checklist on our website,
Oh, yeah. That's a great resource.
goldirablueprint.com. Exclusive. It can help you choose the right gold IRA company.
It's full of really helpful tips.
Exactly.
So definitely check that out if you're thinking about getting a gold IRA.
All right, so we've talked about dividing the gold IRA, but what about the long term?
Right.
How do these decisions affect your financial future?
That's an important question, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next section.
Okay, awesome. So stay tuned. We're going to be wrapping up our deep dive into gold IRAs and divorce protection. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive.
Right.
We've covered a lot,
Yeah, we have.
from the benefits of a gold IRA to all those legal details.
Like QDROs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And how to actually value a gold IRA.
It's complicated stuff.
But now I want to talk about the long game. How do these decisions affect your financial well-being years down the road?
That's important because a divorce settlement isn't just about, splitting things up in the moment.
Right.
It's about making sure you're set up for the future.
Exactly. And when it comes to gold IRAs, I have to think that taxes play a big role in that long-term planning.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the great things about a gold IRA is that it grows tax deferred.
Oh, right, like a traditional IRA,
Exactly. So your investments grow tax-free until you retire,
which can really add up over time.
especially if you're starting over after a divorce.
Right, you might not have as much to invest, so every little bit helps.
Yeah, that tax advantage can really make a difference.
But are there any specific tax things we need to watch out for with a gold IRA?
Well, the main thing to remember is that you can't take the money out before age 59 and a half without paying a penalty.
Right, that 10% penalty.
Exactly.
So it's really not meant to be a short-term solution.
No, it's a long-term investment.
It's about preserving and growing your wealth.
Yeah, for the future.
So once the divorce is finalized,
Yeah.
I guess it's a good idea to really take a look at your whole financial picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, your income might be different, your expenses are probably different,
And your goals have probably changed too.
so you need to adjust your plan accordingly.
Yeah, it's a good time to sit down with a financial advisor and reassess everything.
Okay, and that might include making some changes to your gold IRA too, right?
Yeah, potentially.
I mean, you might want to put more money into it now that you see how valuable it can be.
Yeah, especially for that stability and protection.
Right. Or you might want to diversify into other assets as well.
It all depends on your individual circumstances.
Right. So it's not just something you do once and then forget about.
No, it's an ongoing
You
process.
need to actively manage it.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to have the right team in place.
Yeah, you need good legal advice.
Right.
You need a financial advisor who understands gold IRAs.
And you need a good gold IRA company.
Absolutely.
And speaking of which, I want to remind everyone about that free checklist we have on our website.
Oh, yeah, that's a great resource.
It's at goldirablueprint.com/exclusive.
It'll help you ask the right questions when you're choosing a gold IRA company.
Exactly. So it's worth checking out whether you're going through a divorce or just want to diversify your portfolio.
Right, because at the end of the day, it's about protecting your wealth and your future.
Absolutely well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's been a really informative conversation.
It has, and I hope it's given our listeners some things to think about.
You know, divorce is never easy, but with the right knowledge and the right support, you can come out the other side stronger than ever.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you next time.